Good morning, and welcome back to another episode of my journey watching every Nicolas Cage movie he's ever starred in. If you have not seen the other parts of this series, if you just go on my channel, all my videos are about this, and there's a playlist available as well. Today, I'm going over three movies: Firebird, Zendale, and Honeymoon in Vegas. And all three of these movies, before I even get into them, feel very much stuck in the time period in which they were made. They haven't aged all that well, but with that quick introduction out of the way, let's get into the first movie. The first movie for today is Firebird. Firebird is about a joint task force between the DEA and the United States Army to take down a drug cartel. The way they decide to go about this is to use Apache helicopters to take down this drug cartel. But first they need to train the squad of pilots. And Jack Preston leads the squad of elite pilots, and John Little is in charge of teaching them. So I'm just going to get this out of the way. This movie is just straight up a ripoff of Top Gun. Like, the way that this movie was made was Hollywood executives got together, they sat down and said, how do we make a movie like Top Gun because that was so successful? And unfortunately for them, someone said, why don't we just do Top Gun, but instead of fighter jets, we do helicopters? Which, I'm not hating on helicopters or anything, but what makes people like Top Gun is all the high-flying, super-fast jet stuff. That's the cool thing that everyone likes about Top Gun. Take that away from Top Gun, it's not that good of a movie, in my opinion, at least. But the problem with using helicopters instead of jets, well, jets are fast and agile and can do all this cool stuff, whereas helicopters are much slower, far less agile, and can do almost no cool things other than, flying around. Comparatively, they're nowhere near each other in, entertainment value when it comes to movies. And I'm pretty sure for the most part, helicopters are mostly used as transport, rarely ever in a combat scenario. Much less, I don't think there's ever helicopter on helicopter combat. I don't really think that's a thing, and that's what this movie mostly circles around. Well, actually, that's not fully true. That actually gets me into the other problem that this movie had. There wasn't a lot of action. And look, an action movie can be poorly acted, poorly written, not have the best visuals, but if it's entertaining and action-packed, it's still going to be okay, watchable at least. It can be a fun watch. But this movie does what action movies can't do, which is be boring. Most of this movie is just a training montage for helicopters, and that's just not fun. And the few times we actually do get action sequences, they suck. They're boring. So we don't get a lot of action sequences, and when we do, it's just not worth it. Like the final helicopter fight, because yes, I think I forgot to mention this, the drug cartel also has squadrons of helicopters that are fighting the army helicopters. It's really stupid. But even that, sure, it's stupid, but make it entertaining, and it's just not. Then the interpersonal relationships are just not very good. Nicolas Cage's character, which he plays Jack, the leader, head pilot guy, he has an ex-girlfriend that also is helping with the training. Their relationship is who cares. Tommy Lee Jones plays the squad's instructor. They play off each other all right. That probably was the best part of the movie, was their relationship, but that wasn't really anything to write home about. Just overall, this was a really boring movie. And for our purposes, Nicolas Cage's performance, he just kind of felt like he was put in a box and wasn't able to shine at all in this movie. I think they just wanted to make a super standard action film for the time, and instead they just made this boring mess of a movie. And that's not just like 2024 standards. At the time, it has a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think like a 35% on the audience score, and it made 14.7 million on a budget of 22 million. So even at the time, people were not getting into this movie at all. And this was the one where I was like, this aged horribly. And maybe actually that's not even right, because I don't even know if I can say it aged horribly. I don't think it was born all that well either. So maybe that's a misrepresentation. I guess something has to be good at one point to have aged horribly, and this just was not. So, with all that being said, I mean, obviously, this is going in the boring tier. I would not recommend this movie at all. The only way I'd recommend is if you're following me along the journey, watching all of Nicolas Cage's movies. That's the only context where I would ever recommend this movie. It's not so bad, it's good. There's literally nothing worth seeing in this movie. Next movie I'm talking about today is Zendale. Zendale follows a married couple, Zendale and I think it's pronounced Thierry. Can't really remember how to pronounce it. Couldn't find it anywhere. So he's played by Judge Reinhold. I'm just gonna call the guy Judge Reinhold. That's a lot easier for me. So we're just gonna go with that. Judge Reinhold, unfortunately, has gone through a lot of family loss, a lot of stress. His father died, and he took over the family business, and all this loss and stress has kind of built up. And unfortunately, he at the moment is not able to get it up. And this is putting stress on his marriage with Zendale. During the midst of all this, an old friend of Judge Reinhold shows up, Johnny, played by Nicolas Cage. Johnny is like this free spirit painter. He also does cocaine. Nicolas Cage looks very cool in this movie. He's kind of supposed to be the bad boy, I guess. As Johnny and Judge Reinhold reconnect, Johnny comes around more, and him and Zendale begin an affair. So similarly to Moonstruck, which we did a couple episodes ago, this is a romantic movie about cheating, which, just like in Moonstruck, I don't want any of these people to win. The only one you feel sympathy for, at least in this case, is Judge Reinhold, because he's really not doing anything wrong. He's got something wrong up top, and it's causing a rift in his marriage, which you can sympathize with Zendale for that, but not to the point where she just goes and has sex with his childhood friend. I mean, there's literally zero excuse for that. So Johnny is supposed to be a friend of Judge Reinhold's, and he's betrayed him. Zendale's betrayed him. So two of your three main characters are super unlikable. Who are you supposed to be cheering for in this? And the other thing is, Judge Reinhold, the sympathetic character, kind of starts losing sympathy as the movie goes on. So then you really just kind of get stuck. But with all that out of the way, I mean, this movie does get pretty crazy. And overall, I would say it was entertaining, I guess, but not, again, for the ways I think it intended to be entertaining. I think it was supposed to be what you would call an erotic thriller. That wasn't the vibe that I got from it. There was just a lot of ridiculousness going on in this movie for sure. The first thing I want to talk about is Steve Buscemi's in this movie. I don't know why. His character's just always doing something in the background. He's a garbage man. He's getting arrested in the background in one scene. And one of the final scenes is supposed to be this really impactful moment. No, I'm just going to go ahead and give a spoiler warning. I would actually partially maybe recommend seeing this movie. If this is kind of the thing you're into, I'd recommend seeing it, so you might want to skip forward a little bit. But, so, spoiler warning. So, Zendale dies at the end of the movie, and Nicolas Cage's character is at her grave, and Steve Buscemi just shows up out of nowhere, like, doesn't really know any of these characters, and just starts giving advice to this guy. I guess he works there now, but I thought he was a garbage man, but I also thought he was in jail. I don't know. Steve Buscemi just keeps showing up out of nowhere throughout this movie, and it's kind of funny. Another weird thing about this movie, Zendale and Judge Reinhold live with Judge Reinhold's grandmother, and they talk about sex a lot with their grandmother. I mean, talking about sex more than once with your grandmother is strange, but they talk about it with her often, and it was very awkward in a lot of points for sure. The next couple things are kind of mild spoilers. One's a major spoiler, so again, if you want to skip forward because you want to watch this movie, now would be the time. So, after Judge Reinhold figured out that he was being cheated on, him and Zendale go on a trip, kind of to get away from it all. Of course, Johnny shows up on this trip and joins in on the trip. And at one point, him and Judge Reinhold just start dancing. I don't know, this scene was super weird.
Come on.
And also, again, this is the big spoiler alert. On this trip, Judge Reinhold's character dies. He's kind of drunkenly driving this boat too fast. And so Johnny takes over, but Judge Reinhold falls out. Johnny actually does a good thing and goes back for him and dives in to get him, but Judge Reinhold's like, no, get away from me, don't. He doesn't say those things, obviously, because he's underwater. And Zendale tries to help him, but she can't help him either. And so he just drowns himself, which I thought was impossible, but I guess in this world it's not. Like, I don't know how you can physically drown yourself. Because he can swim, because he grew up around this area, and they talked about, swimming in there all the time, him and Johnny growing up. So he can swim. So he literally just chose to drown himself. As far as Nicolas Cage's performance goes, he does an excellent job. He truly just goes crazy in this movie at times. I think this is around the time where he had enough say to be like, hey, you want me in your movie? I get to lose my shit at some point, at least once. He does it far more than once. But yeah, Nicolas Cage is pretty entertaining in this movie and is by far the best part of this movie. Like a lot of these early Nicolas Cage movies, no one would be watching or talking about them if it wasn't Nicolas Cage starring in this movie at all. Nothing else is all that interesting in this movie other than what Nicolas Cage brings to it. Overall, I'm going to put this in the okay tier. Like I said, if Nicolas Cage isn't in this movie, no one cares about it. I would only recommend it if you are super into this genre of movie, or you really are a huge fan of Nicolas Cage, especially his more crazy roles, then yeah, go check it out. But this isn't one that you're going to be missing out on in any way. I'd definitely never watch it again. It was alright, kind of entertaining, so it's in the okay tier. And for the final movie for today, we will be talking about Honeymoon in Vegas. Honeymoon in Vegas follows a couple, Jack and Betsy, as they go to Vegas to get married, when things just somehow go horribly wrong. So I knew this was going to be an interesting movie when this was the opening scene.
Why weren't you in here before?
The doctor said that...
Screw the doctor.
Mom, you should save your strength.
Jack, if I go.
Mom, you're not going to go.
If I go, I want you to make me a promise. Say I promise.
I promise.
That you'll always love me.
Of course, Mom.
And you'll never get married.
Mom, no, I can't promise that.
No girl can love you like I did, Jack. You'll be unhappy. Don't do it.
Mom, don't say that.
Promise me, Jack. Never.
Mom, that's a huge thing to ask. Mom! 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 Come back! I promise I won't get married!
So, because of his mother's wishes and the fact that Jack is a private eye and basically just catches cheaters all day long, he's very adverse to the idea of getting married. And because of this, it's impacted his long-term relationship with Betsy. She does want to get married someday. She's been patient, but finally she just kind of had enough and basically gave him an ultimatum. And he reluctantly says, all right, fine, let's go to Vegas and just get married and get it over with. When they get to Vegas, a wealthy professional gambler named Tommy sees Betsy, and Betsy looks identical to his now deceased wife. And because of this, he just falls for her, and he hatches a scheme to get Betsy away from Jack, and so he can be with her. Boy, did this movie age poorly. But with that being said, I will be honest, it is kind of funny. I mean, a lot of the humor, is very much from its time, which isn't a bad thing. It's not overly offensive in any way. But, the whole fighting for this girl, the way that Tommy takes her away from Jack is really messed up, but he's the bad guy, so I guess the fact that he does messed up things is to be expected. But, just some of it was just like, oh, that's very much from the time. But overall, I would say it was pretty entertaining, and it did make me laugh, which it's a comedy, and that's what it's supposed to do, so points for that. This movie's just really silly and goofy and over the top. Its plot is really stupid. It's not meant to be taken seriously. That's why I can kind of overlook some of the aspects of it that haven't aged the best, because it's not meant to be taken seriously. Just sit back and enjoy it, One funny thing about this movie, while they're in Vegas, there's like a Elvis Presley impersonator convention going on, and so there's just Elvises everywhere. And I found it funny because the last video I did, one of my things was Nicolas Cage was doing an Elvis and Presley impersonation the entire time, and now in this movie, there's just Elvis impersonators everywhere. Another cool thing, there's a scene where they're like watching the Elvis impersonators do Elvis Presley performances, and there's a kid doing one, and while I was watching, I was like, oh my god, that's Bruno Mars, and I looked it up, it actually is Bruno Mars. He lived in Hawaii as a young child. I don't know why I knew this, but that's kind of how we got his start in entertainment. He did an Elvis and Presley impersonation as a kid. And so I thought that was pretty fun that Bruno Mars is in this movie too. So I'm actually going to put this movie in the good tier. It's a comedy that made me laugh. If it was on, I'd definitely watch it again. I don't know if I'd go out of my way to watch it again, but if someone was like, hey, I want to watch Honeymoon Vegas, I'd be like, yeah, throw it on. It's a good movie. If you like comedies from this time, definitely go check it out. If you like movies in this time period, go check it out. Yeah, I would recommend you watching it. Don't skip this one. It was a good watch. And with that, those are the 3 movies I'm going over today. I hope you enjoyed. If you've seen these movies, let me know what you thought about them. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, put a like on the video. Next episode will be soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.